Hello, good afternoon. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be getting started in just a few minutes here. I just wanted to emphasize the question process. There's QR code up here you can scan with your phone, submit it on a Google form, and I'll read off names. You'll stand up when your name is called and line up at either of the two aisles and ask your question when your turn is up. But first, the congressman will introduce, and we'll have a few guests to speak. We'll get started shortly. Thank you. question of the congressman. When we get to that part of the program, we'd be happy to take them. But please scan this QR code up here with your phone in order to access the Google form that you'll submit your question on. We're getting them in our computer back there, and I'll read off the names as we get them, and you'll line up at either of the aisles after your name has been called, and we'll take your turn when we get to that part of the program. With that, I would like to introduce Congressman Mike Levin.
Wow. Good afternoon, everybody. It is great to see you. For those that I don't know, I'm Congressman Mike Levin. I have the great honor to represent the 49th Congressional District, I think the best congressional district anywhere in the United States. Including this great community of San Juan Capistrano, where my wonderful wife Chrissy and I have lived for the last 12 years. And please give a shout out to my amazing wife Chrissy. None of this is possible without her. She has to put up with me. She has to put up with this crazy schedule. I'm just truly grateful for all that you do, sweetie, and I love you very much. Aw. I also want to give a shout out to two great elected officials that I see here in the front. That's Sergio Farias, the San Juan Capistrano City Councilman, and our dear friend Stephanie Otto from the city of Laguna Niguel. If there are other elected officials here, I'm sorry, but I see Stephanie and I see Sergio here in the front. What I'd like to do now is I'd like to welcome, for the presentation of the colors, the Boy Scout Troop 113 from San Clemente and Abram Garfinkel. Give it up for the Boy Scouts, everybody.
Color guard, attention. Audience, please rise. Color guard, advance. Color guard, prepare to post the colors. Color guard, post the colors. Audience, please put your right hand over your heart and recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Color guard, regroup. Color guard, retreat. Audience at ease. Thank you.
Sorry, but everybody's going to have to get back up because we're going to do the Star-Spangled Banner. Sorry about that. Here to sing the national anthem, please welcome Shannon Brennan. Shannon.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs burst flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
Wonderful job. Thank you. Wonderful job. Thank you. Wow. Now you can be seated. Thank you, Shannon. That was great. We're here today at San Juan Hills High School, part of the Capistrano Unified School District, the same district where my kids go to school. I want to thank the administration and the staff of San Juan Hills for hosting us today. Give it up for them, everybody. And I also want to thank all my team who did such a great job putting this event together. If you're part of my team, can you please raise your hand? Thank you all very, very much. Great job. You know, because we're here at San Juan High School, let me emphasize that I believe every child, no matter their background, deserves access to a great education. And please know that I will always fight to protect and strengthen our great public schools like this one. I also want to take a moment to thank our law enforcement from the Orange County Sheriff's Department that are here. I want to thank you for your commitment to keeping our communities safe. Thank you very much. And I want to thank our 3 constituents that you're going to be hearing from in just a moment for spending some of their Sunday with us. When I first ran for office in 2018, I made a commitment to hold a town hall at least once a month, and we've exceeded that. This is now our 121st town hall. And I hold these town halls in different formats so I can hear it from as many people as possible. I believe that representative isn't only my job title, it is my job description, and what you share with me shapes the work that I do in Washington, and it's a responsibility I take very seriously. I know that many of you here are concerned, you're frustrated, you're anxious about the direction of our country. I hear your concerns loud and clear about the chaos, about the dysfunction in Washington, D.C., the cuts to vital programs, and the need for strong leadership that puts people over politics. Thank you. I share your concerns, and I'm here to listen, take your questions, and discuss a path forward. Above all, I am focused on delivering results for this district, period. I'm proud of my record, having passed 16 bills into law under President Trump and 18 bills into law under President Biden. I'm a proud member of the House Appropriations Committee, and I've secured over $1 billion in federal funds for our district over the past 6 years, tackling issues like sand replenishment to protect our coastline, housing for our veterans, and upgrading equipment for our law enforcement. I'm honored that the Center for Effective Lawmaking at the University of Virginia ranks me among the top 5% of the most effective members of Congress, and that the Lugar Center at Georgetown University ranks me in the top 4th of the most bipartisan members of Congress. Thank you. But I got to tell you, right now, it's tough. It's tough to get stuff done. It's tough to be bipartisan. This second Trump administration is very different from the first. House and Senate Republicans have handed huge amounts of their power that they have under Article 1 of the Constitution over to the president. And the president, in turn, has handed huge amounts of power over to Elon Musk, who runs something called DOGE, which I think stands for Destruction of Government by Elon. we are seeing in real time the dismantling of parts of the federal government from the inside. Tens of thousands of federal workers fired over the last 2 months, including at least 6,000 veterans from the federal workforce. Congress's constitutional power of the purse being ignored. Efforts to disrupt Social Security and cut funding for Medicaid. Dismantling the Department of Education altogether. And threats to birthright citizenship and to legal immigration. To me, this isn't about Republicans versus Democrats. And it's not about efficiency, because most of us in Congress want to work in a bipartisan, constitutional, legal way to reduce waste, fraud, and abuse, and find ways to get our deficit and debt under control. But what this is really about, to me, is whether we have a functioning government that works for the American people. And it's also about America's role in the world. On that front, I am deeply concerned that the United States is pulling back from long-standing relationships with our allies. We cannot let autocrats and dictators call the shots. We cannot abandon NATO. And we cannot turn our back on Ukraine. My grandfather and the greatest generation did not fight against fascism in World War II just for America to retreat from democracy now. And we need to ask ourselves, why are we treating some of our closest allies like Canada and Mexico worse than our adversaries? The president seems to think that tariffs will solve all of our problems. I strongly disagree. Tariffs won't bring in the revenues that the president is promising. And the revenue that they do bring in will come at the expense of Americans who pay higher prices as a result of those tariffs. And so I would just offer this. Instead of waging economic war against our allies, how about working together to lower costs and build a more secure supply chain that reduces dependence on our adversaries? At a time when China and Russia are looking to expand their influence, we need to be reinforcing our partnerships, not weakening them. Now, it's been a busy week in Washington. I want to talk about the partisan six-month spending bill that just passed the Congress. As you might have heard, Republicans forced through a bill that guts essential services, well, in a completely unprecedented move in the modern history of our country, gives free rein to an unelected billionaire donor, Elon Musk, whose objective is to dismantle government programs he doesn't like, including agencies that regulate his private companies. That is an epic conflict of interest. And let's be clear about another reason they're doing this. These same billionaire donors like Musk want more tax cuts, and they couldn't care less who gets hurt in the process. I'm incredibly proud that House Democrats stood united against this bill. We offered a better alternative, a short-term funding solution to keep the government open while negotiating in a bipartisan way through the normal appropriations process that I am a part of. But Republicans wouldn't even sit down for any sort of serious negotiation. Instead, they forced through a partisan bill that threatens to cut veterans' health care, provides no money for wildfire relief that we need here in California, ignores community project funding, and hurts families and small businesses. And I have to say this, I am profoundly disappointed that Senate Democratic leadership caved instead of holding the line. But I do want to thank our two United States Senators from California, Adam Schiff and Alex Padilla, for voting no. With that, I want to turn to how the cuts across the federal government are hurting real people, our constituents, including the three you're about to hear from. First, let's talk about Social Security, which Elon Musk believes is a Ponzi scheme. Well, I have news for you, Elon. It's not a Ponzi scheme. It's a contract that Americans pay into and rely on. And I say, Elon, keep your hands the hell off Social Security. And now I'd like to ask Susie Dixon to share her story. We got to get Susie a microphone.
Thank you, Congressman. I'm a proud constituent of your district, and I'm a retired educator. I actually taught in this district 35 years. I'm currently the president. Thank you. I'm currently the president of the California Retired Teachers Association, a nonpartisan organization in California. So I've been actively engaged in Social Security issues for the last 10 years. In fact, I just returned from Washington, D.C. last week. Social Security is not an entitlement. It is your earned benefits that you've paid into and you qualify for when you reach that retirement age. But we now have the DOJ telling us it's a Ponzi scheme and it is an entitlement. And I heard this over and over through both parties to be very concerned. This is the first time in our history, and Social Security is 90 years old this August. First time in our history that a private group has come in, has access to your Social Security number, your medical information, your home address, and if you have direct deposit, your banking information. That is a terrifying thought. We all have had data breaches. This could be one of the largest in our country. That is something that we fought for that is not acceptable. Both parties will say that, but some will not say it out loud enough. We also found, yes, there's outdated technology in the Social Security system. I was on the hold for 3.5 hours to get an appointment. You can currently not make an appointment online. Some of our members have been on hold 8 hours. That's true. It is outdated. But with this consistent data diving, it can crash the system. We need to have had more funding to update the technology. And I'm shocked that Elon, with his interest in technology, didn't recognize that, but instead wants to crash it and start over. And start over means privatize. And that is a fact. The field offices and the 7,000 reduction that has been decided upon for agents will be devastating for our members, especially our older members who do not use technology. And that is something they will lose out on their earned benefits. If their spouse dies, they will not be able to get that survivor benefit. If a field office is closed and they live in a rural area, they will not be able to drive 3 or 4 hours to find their nearest office that may still be open. So be very concerned. The service cuts last week, I was in D.C., I was in Hakeem Jeffries' office in the Capitol when his aide got an alert that they wanted to cut the phone offices, all the phone service from Social Security. That was fact. It is in the Washington Post. I saw the alert. So I was asked to get on the CalRTA and contact every single group that I worked with on the national level. The outcry, as Congressman said, that people came up and said that cannot work, they suddenly backed away at 7:59 that night. But these are things that cannot be tolerated on a daily basis. As I said earlier, Social Security is not a Ponzi scheme. It is not an entitlement. It is your earned money, your earned benefits that Americans have worked for, and we need to stand up and shout and remind ourselves that is not a partisan issue. It is an American issue. So thank you.
Thank you, Susie. Second, we'll get there. Second, let's talk about Medicaid. The proposed Republican budget will cut $880 billion for Medicaid, putting critical health care services at risk for seniors, families, people with disabilities, and children. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Carl Steinberg to share his story. Carl.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for inviting me. I love this guy. I'm a nursing home and hospice medical director in North San Diego County. I've been in Oceanside for about 30 years now, and I'm really deeply concerned about these Medicaid cuts. And just so we're on the same page, we're California, so we call it Medi-Cal, but because we're special, but we're talking about the same thing. Our California Medicaid funds, 50% of those, fully 50%, come from the federal government. And with these deep cuts that are being contemplated and probably will be implemented, there's very little doubt that we are going to take a hit, particularly because our current administration isn't fond of California. Now, I want to say, I don't know, how many of you have been in a skilled nursing facility in the last year or two? Oh, okay, a decent number. Well, they're not Disneyland, I'll tell you that. There's not lines of people waiting to get in, but there is an awful lot of love and compassion and magic that goes on in these places every day. And, you know, God bless the people that choose to work in these places. The trouble is that Medicaid does not even cover a nursing home's overhead, basically. And so they have to rely on other sources like Medicare to help make ends meet. And what this will wind up meaning is that nursing homes are going to shut down. Almost 1,000 nursing homes nationwide shut down last year. They're not able to keep their doors open. That's probably more of a factor in rural areas than it is here, but I think about a quarter of the nursing facilities in the district would be at risk for shutting down if Medicaid gets cut. So I don't think any of us, no matter what our political affiliation and so on, wants to see, 95-year-old people sleeping in the park or being discharged from a nursing home to an unsafe home environment. And it's not just nursing homes, and that's where I hang out, but Medicaid, about a third of the California population relies on Medi-Cal in some way or another. And so this is going to really, really hit other seniors, it's going to hit children, pregnant women, and a whole host of other people. So I'm really deeply concerned about it, and I'm not exactly sure what we can do. We can vote, but anyway, I think I'll just leave it at that, and we want to hear what you guys have to say.
Third, I'd like to talk about our veterans. Do we have veterans here? Can they raise their hand? Can we give them a round of applause, please? The administration is in the process of firing tens of thousands of people from the VA, and as the cuts are occurring across the federal government, already approximately 6,000 veterans have been fired. My experience, having served as either the chair or the ranking member on the Veterans Affairs Subcommittee that deals with veteran employment, is that most veterans, after they're done with their military service, are just looking for other ways to serve, and the federal government provides a great way to do that. About 1/3 of all federal employees are veterans. So you don't want to hear it from me, you want to hear it from a veteran, right? So let's ask Colin Williams to share his story. Thank you, Colin.
All right, well, a little more, there's more people here than I expected. So I'm going to go for my prepared remarks just to be safe here. So my name is Colin Williams, San Clemente resident, Army veteran. I'm a disabled veteran, and I'm the faculty chair of the Saddleback College Vets program right down here in Mission Viejo. I was asked to speak today about the impact of the Trump administration's plan to cut 80,000 jobs from the Department of Veterans Affairs and to spotlight challenges in programs like Veterans Readiness and Employment, or VRE. Before I begin, I'd like to publicly thank Congressman Levin for his unwavering support for veterans in general, but specifically student veterans. He's made a significant difference, and I greatly appreciate it. Now let's talk about the cuts. So slashing nearly 1/5 of the VA workforce isn't a trim. It's a major reduction. The VA isn't just paperwork. It's doctors, nurses, claims processors, counselors, and all kinds of professionals that help people through and access benefits. Losing 80,000 jobs would mean longer wait times, fewer appointments, and more delays. In addition, many of these positions are held by veterans, and cutting them feels like a broken promise. Without a clear plan to protect services, eliminating 80,000 jobs is a risk we can't take. I get the push for efficiency. The VA has grown, and the current administration says these cuts will save $1 billion a year. I also support smart spending. But here's the problem. Even at current staffing levels, veterans continue to face long wait lines for care and benefits. Take the program Vocational Rehabilitation. It's a vital program for veterans with service-connected disabilities, offering job training, career counseling, and employment support. But too often, it's a nightmare. I have heard from veterans across our area and at Saddleback College very frequently that they have to wait 4 to 6 months to meet a counselor, only to get tangled in red tape or rejected over complex requirements. The program is already understaffed, and we can't repair a broken system by making it weaker. Cutting 80,000 more jobs won't fix issues, it will only exacerbate them. My stance is that the VA needs reform, VRE included, and we must tackle inefficiency and hold the agency accountable. But slashing jobs is not the answer. In fact, we need more VA employees, especially VRE counselors, not fewer. We need a balanced approach, transparency on the cuts, a solid plan to protect services, and a real effort to improve access to benefits. We need faster approvals, better staffing, and actual employment outcomes. Our veterans have earned their benefits, especially our disabled veterans, and cutting such a large number of VA staff isn't a solution. There must be a compromise between staffing levels and process improvements. The VA as a whole needs to be reevaluated and leadership held accountable. We can't keep taking 1 step forward and 2 steps back. Thank you, Congressman Levin, for having me.
Now I'm going to hand it over to Kyle, who's going to moderate the Q&A.
Well, I'm just going to call folks up. So as I mentioned earlier, if you submitted your question, we have the list of everybody up here. So I'm just going to go over there, and I'm going to list off your names, and you can come up to either Jessica right here with the microphone or Salome with the microphone right over there. One moment as I get the list from my computer. For our first 3 questioners, Wendy Cochran, Nancy Rohr, Scott Burke, if you could come up to the microphones. Wendy Cochran, Nancy Rohr, Scott Burke. Whoever gets there first, you can go ahead and begin the questions. I see them coming on up. All right. I think Salome's got the first one right here.
Thank you. Hi, Wendy Cochran, Vista, California. Proud Army wife. Go Army. Lieutenant Colonel Cochran is with me today. He started his voyage from Oceanside High School at the age of 17 to join the Army. He went to Germany, came back, California National Guard, trained soldiers in Ukraine. He is still serving right now as a commander in the California State Guard. During his time in the Utah Army Reserve National Guard deployment to Iraq, he got to suck up those burn pits. He has emphysema, he has nodes in his lungs, and all the other things that come with a lifetime of service to our country. What is your plan to convince your GOP and Democratic colleagues to stand up and protect veterans and their families from this administration's gutting of VA benefits and protections like the PACT Act?
Thank you. It's Wendy, right? Wendy. Thank you, Wendy, and thank your husband as well. Is he here, right? Give her husband a round of applause. Thank you very much. Even the Navy people applauded you. That's pretty impressive. So, Wendy, the way I see it, I have some tools in my toolbox right now. I obviously I don't have the gavel. I don't have the ability that I used to when we were in charge of the House to see legislation cross the finish line. And I don't have the allies in the White House that I once had. What I do have though, are I have all of you, and I think that mobilization and communication are fundamentally important, probably the most important thing that we have. I have certain tools from a legislative perspective, I have certain tools from a procedural perspective, and we have certain things we're doing from a litigation perspective. All that's important too. But if you want to know over the last 2 months, and Susie will tell you, the way we've actually been able to push back on some of the more egregious things that the administration and my colleagues are proposing is with the voices of people just like you, who stand up and say, there's no way that after everything we've gone through to get the PACT Act across the finish line so we could finally take care of our veterans who are exposed to toxic substances, to burn pits in the post-9/11 conflicts, we finally got that bill across the finish line. And now you're going to try to take away $23 billion because you don't like you don't think that the VA can do the job. You don't think they can do this job well. You want to privatize the VA. The way to fight back against it is to call them out. Because for the last 6 or 7 years I've been in Congress, you've had Republicans who've wanted to privatize the VA. It's as simple as that. You had Republicans that didn't want to fund the PACT Act, the roughly $300 billion over time it's going to cost to take care of all those veterans. We had to guilt them into it. It took people like Jon Stewart, right? It took others from groups like Vote Vets and our veteran service organizations. So I don't have any easy answer other than keep telling your story. We're actually collecting those stories, and we're going to post them across our social media. I encourage you to follow us on social media at Rep. Mike Levin across all the platforms. If you're interested in telling your story about how these cuts are impacting you, please talk to one of our staff, and they'll make sure to get your contact information, and we'll get that story up on social media. At the end of the day, we've got another roughly 2 years that we're going to have to fight via mobilization, fight via communication, and then, God willing, we'll be able to fight after that with legislation, with subpoena power, with real oversight, because that's what it's going to take. And it's going to be a bumpy ride from here to there. I also hope that we use our leverage, for crying out loud, that we have the debt ceiling coming up. We have the reconciliation situation coming up. Democrats need to use their leverage. And I'm going to fight for that every step of the way. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Scott Burke. I'm from Oceanside. And like the rest of you, like the rest of you, I'm just horrified with what's going on in Washington, D.C. It's just tyranny. And I can't believe what's happening to our country. So my question is, and it's kind of a broad question, Mike, but what is the most productive and effective things we, the people, can do at this point?
Thank you, Scott. The fact that you're here says that you care, says that you want to be part of the solution, that you love your country, and that you want to do all you can to have a better future for your kids, your grandkids. And I would just encourage you again Don't just yell at the TV. Stay involved. Stay involved. And what that means for every single one of you is different. Some of you have the time to be able to get involved with organizations or with entities that are like-minded. I encourage you to stay engaged and stay involved. Others might be really good writers. Maybe you could write letters to the editor. Still others could, well, you're all very good at calling your member of Congress. I have to share it. That is very true. My point, though, is every single person here has unique background and experience that they can bring to bear over these next 2 years. Again, we try to find the agency that we all have. We really all do have agency. I might be elected as a member of the House of Representatives. I have certain things that I can do. We have procedural maneuvers, things like privilege resolutions, things like discharge petitions that can help advance legislation even over the wishes of the Speaker. And we're going to be doing as much of that as we can. We have a litigation strategy. Those of you who are lawyers in the room, we're working very hard on part of the litigation task force, which is being run by Jamie Raskin. We're going to have Jamie come to do a town hall with us. What do you think? We're going to do that. He's a very good friend of mine, and we have been working every day for the last 2 months thinking about the over 100 lawsuits that are on the table right now that, by the way, we're winning in a lot of them. And the hope is that continues. The hope is that continues. But I can tell you, at the end of the day, just know you gave it your all, no regrets. When you wake up, what can you do that particular day to move the needle in a positive direction? That's all I'm doing. And I thank my wonderful wife for giving me the opportunity to do this, because it's not easy, but I'm very grateful. Thank you. Who's next? Here we go.
Nancy Rohr. I'm from Capistrano Beach. We recently saw the debacle of the Army Corps of Engineers obeying a Trump directive against the local authorities and experts to release important water reserves into a dry lake bed that went nowhere. I really enjoyed watching how you questioned those individuals, and I was shocked at their response, to be honest. And I wonder, it's so indicative of everything we're seeing in the Trump administration, bungle and, slash and burn and bungle. In this case, like as in all, what can we do to make sure something like that doesn't happen again, especially in California?
Well, thank you for that question, Nancy. So everybody knows what happened, right? So let me just very briefly give you the 60-second recap. We had devastating wildfires in Pacific Palisades, Altadena, terrible situation. I went and toured it a few weeks after it had occurred, and it's even worse than the TV or the pictures can show. And the Army Corps of Engineers, normally they do a very good job. I've been working with them for 7 years. I know that it's not always easy. They're a big bureaucracy, but for example, we've gotten sand on our beaches in San Clemente and down in Encinitas and Solana Beach. We're working with them on flood control projects throughout the district. They do a good job. And so I was really shocked when I heard that 2 billion gallons of water were allowed to flow down to the Tulare Lake from two dams where we need that water. Our farmers need that water. The engineers and the scientists will tell you that if we have a relatively dry February, March, April, that water is essential for the summer agriculture. And the Army Corps knows better. It was against their own engineers, their own experts to do what they did. Basically, the president said, I want to get water, I want to get a picture of water flowing, turn on the faucet, and then they did it. And in fact, the Army Corps scaled back what they were going to do. But they still did it, and it was incredibly wasteful. And we know from public reporting that they knew it was a bad idea. We know they were told it was a bad idea by local stakeholders and farmers. They did it anyway, and I tried to dig into why. So I'm on the House Appropriations Committee, as I mentioned, and I have oversight, specific oversight over the Army Corps of Engineers budget. I'm on the Energy and Water Subcommittee. So we had the commanding general, 3-star general from the Army Corps of Engineers, and I asked him what I thought were a series of simple questions. And he didn't answer any of them. Now, in our hearing, unfortunately, he wasn't under oath. Maybe we're going to have to get a hearing under oath. What do you think? I'm going to have to convince the Republicans of that. But he wouldn't answer, and it was shocking to me. The other thing you should know is that it was already 100% contained. In other words, those fires were already contained. So even if the water reached LA, which it couldn't, and they knew that, it still wouldn't have made any difference. The reason why it's so important and what we do from here is get to the bottom of it to make sure the Army Corps is on the level with all the other projects that they're working on. And my team, when all this came up, they said, well, you know, you're going to damage the relationship with the Army Corps because you have all these other projects. I said, look, holding them accountable, I think is absolutely the right move. We have to hold them accountable. We have to make sure that they know that we're watching. And that's the case. That's the case for Social Security. The reason that DOJ and the administration pulled back on their harebrained idea to kill the phone system was because people like Susie Dixon called them out and said, we're watching. And ultimately that's going to happen with Medicaid, it's going to happen with the VA, because folks like our constituents on stage are going to say, enough is enough, you can't do this. So I would just encourage you, talk to your friends, talk to your neighbors, talk to your family, talk to your coworkers, do a lot of listening, have uncomfortable conversations. All the better if they supported this president. Listen to them. And the facts are our friends, right? And the reality is that a lot of people that I know who are Republicans who supported this president said, this is not what I bargained for. I mean it. I'm hearing that more and more. I really am. Other people adore the guy, and they always will, no matter what he does. And I represent them too. But there are many who voted for him who are now seeing this is not what we bargained for. Thank you, Nancy.
Our next three questions can come from David Bratt, Julie Carlton, and Karen Fisher. David Bratt, Julie Carlton, Karen Fisher, please come up to either of the microphones to ask your question.
And feel free to ask questions to the three of them as well, because they know more about a lot of things than I do.
Hi, David Bratt from Oceanside. So first of all, I just want to say that I am active. Yesterday I participated in the Tesla takedown in Encinitas. As a former car salesman, I know that Saturday is prime time selling, and I don't think you sold many Teslas yesterday. There were about 200 or 300 of us. Anyway, my question is an obvious one, unfortunately, is what can we do, all of us, to prevent privatization of Social Security, maintain current funding levels, and protect our earned benefits in the future?
Okay, I'm going to turn it to Susie.
Thank you. I've been dying to do this. And by the way, being a teacher, I've got facts, my notes. All right. So basically what we've been doing, and this is how we had a big Social Security win last session, you must, if you're a teacher, you know what it's about, or a policeman or a fireman or a veteran. It is imperative you advocate all the time. So there's different ways. Number one, postcards. Do not send a letter in an envelope to DC. You can send something to the White House. You can get on Google and find out who's on Ways and Means. Find their DC address. Use a postcard. Do not send anything in an envelope, correct? They don't want, it will sit for a while to go through security. The other thing is, you know, we're older. Facebook's our friend. Young kids don't use it. Follow every single elected official and comment, but look up the facts before you comment. For example, when DOJ said that there were how many millions on Social Security who were over 150 years old? Wrong. They have not come out and said that. And the reason is, again, that outdated technology. It's called the COBOL system, C-O-B-O-L. And they used to put a code if they didn't know your death date or your birth date. So the code was 1875-05-20. So the young DOJ kids thought that meant that the person was born on May 20th, 1875. That is a fact that's been corrected, but it has not come out enough. So please contact. We know how our congressman feels. We know how our senators feel, but contact the other ones. And so social media, I think, is one of the biggest tools you can use. And you can always call their office, and you can shut down their email system, as we have done for Congressman Levin's many times.
You know, I'll just add one thing, which is the State of the Union address, or the address by the President to the joint session of Congress. He went on and on about, you know, the claims, the false claims of 150-year-olds and 200-year-olds. I couldn't even listen after that. But, you know, it was all, in my view, designed to undermine the confidence in Social Security. And again, this is a contract that we all pay into, and on the other side, they want to privatize. We know this. Elon Musk saying it's a Ponzi scheme. We know what Project 2025 has said about Social Security. By the way, if you didn't catch it earlier today, it was reported that the guy who was really in charge of Project 2025 said that it is working beyond his wildest dreams. He was quoted earlier today saying that. Here's the other thing that you should know. The other side, they like to say, Social Security is going broke, Social Security is going to run out of money. We have a plan called Social Security 2100. It is authored by John Larson. Do you all know who John Larson is? John was in the news a couple days ago because he blew a blood vessel during a hearing. He's a dear friend of mine from Connecticut. Social Security 2100 is a really simple bill. You know how we all pay into the payroll tax system up until about $170,000, give or take. All the bill says is if you make over $400,000 in earned income, you pay payroll tax on that amount too. So you don't pay between $170,000 and $400,000, but then above $400,000 you pay. And all we would need to do is that. If you do that, you keep the program solvent for the rest of the century. And you could actually increase benefits adjusted for inflation. That's it. No big deal. Right? But unfortunately, very wealthy people don't want to pay their fair share. That's what all this is about. And one last thing I will say about the Republican budget. No fiscal conservative can claim to support that budget because it will add $4 trillion at least to the national debt over the next decade. More if they actually move forward with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security. That will be more like $10 or $11 trillion that they will add to the debt. And all I will tell you is you go back and look. When Donald Trump first ran for president in 2016, he said he would eliminate the national debt in 8 years. He really said that he would eliminate the national debt in 8 years. Instead, he added $7.7 trillion to the debt in 4 years, which, when he left office, represented about 1/4 of the entire national debt. Today, it's $36.1 trillion. We've got to address this. We've got to make hard decisions that require revenue and taxation. We can't just have tax cuts for rich people. And as one of my Republican colleagues told me behind closed doors, he said, well, we'll just grow our way out of it. And I said, the hell we will. That has never worked and it never will. We've got to come together. We've got to do the hard things, and we've got to fight to protect Social Security and Medicare and Medicaid and the VA for all those people who have fought and paid into it and worked hard. And that's what I'm going to do with your help.
Hi, my name is Julie Carlton. I'm from Vista. I'm an Army veteran. I have a housing voucher through the VASH program. I have a non-military related disability. I'm on my second appeal through Social Security, and my kids and I are on Medi-Cal. I was going to ask, what are we going to do to fight that? But we've gotten the answer. So my other question would be, when these things come down and those of us that are hanging, flying in the wind. What are we going to do to help people like me? Is there, like, the state of California we give money to other states, right? I mean, would they be willing to come up with a social safety net, in place of these things? Do we have
Julie, I should have had you up here. Give Julie a round of applause. So in the event that the administration actually cuts these services the way they intend, the states are going to have to pick up the slack. But you're absolutely right that we as Californians pay more into the system than we get back. And I've been trying to fight for basic fairness in the tax system and for what we pay as Californians for 7 years now. By the way, the other thing that got left on the cutting room floor of the Republican budget was the state and local tax deduction being made fair again for Californians and others. Doesn't surprise me because they don't really like California very much. I call it California envy. I say they have California envy. But in terms of what would happen is states like California would have to pick up the difference. And right now we're running a budget deficit in California. So it's very unlikely that we'll be able to do that. I've asked the governor's team, and they just flat out say they don't have the money to do that right now. But I know there are great organizations like Saddleback College. Do you want to weigh in on some of this? Let me hand the mic.
Sure. Well, I would just say that I guess it's just really important to make your voice heard. With student veterans at the college, like we really are proactive and help them follow certain legislation and stuff that impacts their lives. And once they kind of get the hang of it, they become really involved. We were just in D.C. A couple weeks ago for Student Veterans of America Washington Week, and when we came back, 2 of my students changed their majors to political science. So they're disabled veterans. They're interested and care about the others, and it can feel real isolating. For many out there when you just feel it's like you against the world. So the advocacy is really important. Connect with your fellow veterans. If you haven't already, it's powerful. You can move mountains, you really can, especially when there's a voice and you have somebody so open to hearing you like Congressman Levin. It's very powerful.
One more thing I would say is if we can ever personally assist you in any way with the VA or with any of the programs that are federal programs, we would be honored to do that. We have veterans on our team. They're here somewhere. I don't know where they all are. But go to any of our staff and just connect, and we'd be delighted to help. In fact, we can help with all of the programs we're discussing today, any federal program, not just the VA, but certainly with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, IRS, you name it, and we'd be very honored to help with any of the above.
Karen Fisher, San Juan Capistrano. You mentioned the legal strategy and over 100 lawsuits have been filed and so forth, but this administration has already said that they won't follow judicial orders, and they've already have defied several judicial orders. So my question is, what then? I mean, if they stop following the judicial branch, if they stop following their orders, what do we do then?
Thank you. And it's Karen, right? Thank you for the question. So it's been on my mind as well. Karen's right. I never thought we'd be in this circumstance ever. But here we are. Where I think things are going ahead is you're already seeing some of these cases making their way to the Supreme Court, and when they get to the Supreme Court, I think there will be a 5-4 majority defending our institutions. I really believe that. Knocking on some wood right now. Knocking on some wood. I think, I don't want the future of our rule of law necessarily in the hands of Amy Coney Barrett, but I think that's really where we are. John Roberts, I think, will do what the Constitution requires. I know that Justice Jackson and Kagan and Sotomayor will follow the law and the Constitution and 240 years of precedent in the country. I think you know what Thomas and Alito will do. Kavanaugh and Gorsuch are wild cards. It is hard to say. They have both demonstrated at times that they're willing to break from this president when this president's behavior is egregious, and I'd say it's more egregious now than it was during the first administration. So a number of cases are going to make their way to the Supreme Court, and that's when we will really see whether we are in a near constitutional crisis or a full-blown constitutional crisis. What happens in that event? I can tell you that folks like Jamie and others and I are discussing that behind the scenes, but we really would be in uncharted territory at that point. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're going to be finding out fairly soon. And I wish I had like some easy, one-sentence answer that it's all going to be okay. I don't have that. I don't have that. We're all just as concerned as you are as we navigate through all of this. Thank you.
All right. Our next three questions will come from Bruce Gaffney, Steve Tobenkin, I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, and Donna Vidrine. Bruce Gaffney, Steve Tobenkin, and Donna Vidrine, please approach the microphones.
Oh, thank you. Good afternoon, Mike, team. My name is Bruce Gaffney. I'm from Oceanside. I'm a veteran, Social Security eligible, and Medicaid eligible also. My question is, veterans who were previously 100% determined to be disabled, are they now at risk of having that reversed? And if so, are there any safeguards to prevent that?
That I have not heard, Bruce. That would concern me greatly. I haven't heard any rumor, or nor have I seen any evidence that there is an effort to change the disability rating process. More what I think is happening is a wholesale desire to undermine the services that are provided to veterans and to try to privatize the VA. I say this because this is what they've wanted to do for quite some time. The problem with that, of course, is that the VA, they're not perfect. No organization is perfect, but they, by and large, they do a tremendous job at providing care for our veterans, and they do it better than the private sector would do it, and they do it cheaper, more efficient as well. And community care is really important, particularly if you are in a remote area or you need a special, sort of care that the VA cannot provide. There is a role for that. But when it was originally created by President Obama, not President Trump. President Obama is the one. President Trump said as many times as he could that he did choice for veterans. President Obama did choice for veterans. That's one of many things that we can talk about. But it was supposed to be a supplement, not a replacement for VA health care, right? And there are far too many that want to see it as a replacement for VA health care. I'm very concerned about what the cuts to things like the Veterans Crisis Line may lead to. So we know as part of the cuts to VA that folks from the Veterans Crisis Line were let go. For me, that's just unconscionable given how hard we've worked on a bipartisan basis since I've been in Congress to try to address veterans' mental health. I don't know if you want to speak more to any of this. By the way, 1 in every 10 veterans are on Medicaid. 1 in every 10 veterans are on Medicaid.
I also haven't heard anything about them trying to change people's ratings.
Yeah, that's the same with me, nothing for the ratings. But, when we're talking about cuts to VA employees, many of those employees process disability claims. So if you can never get your disability, is that not the same as just taking it away? I see students and veterans struggle for years. You probably know to get the appropriate disability rating is a challenge. So you can't take access away. That's the same as taking it away. That's the same. If you don't have access to the benefits, you don't get them ever. It's not good. So mental health is always top of mind. We deal with a lot of Marine Corps vets. Suicide is still a topic that is very much real and happens, and we deal with that often. So we do our best to support them, and we appreciate the support from Congressman Levin to keep those services available.
Hi, my name is Donna Vadrine. I live in San Clemente. I'm a veteran of the United States Air Force. I will be running for City Council in San Clemente District 1. And my question today is, Congressman Levin, how are you going to remain meaningful and effective on the House Appropriations Committee with a Republican-led Congress? What are your top 3 priorities?
Thank you, Donna. Well, I'll tell you something. I fought very hard to become a member of the House Appropriations Committee. And then as soon as I got on the committee, the Republican chairman, Tom Cole, said, well, we're just making recommendations to the Trump administration. I said, I wouldn't have fought so hard to get on this committee if I knew we were just making recommendations. That's not how it works. Article 1 says only Congress can authorize programs and appropriate funds. Period. Full stop. I mean, my 12-year-old knows this. My 10-year-old daughter knows this. It's not that hard. So what it means then, assuming that I'm allowed to appropriate funds, is I'm on 2 subcommittees. The Appropriations Committee is made up of 12 different subcommittees that represent all 12 aspects of federal spending. The 2 that I'm on are the Energy and Water Subcommittee and the Military Construction and VA Subcommittee. So for energy and water, I have direct jurisdiction over the Army Corps of Engineers, hence the question earlier, the Bureau of Reclamation, that's all the water projects that we've got, and the Department of Energy, so everything regarding spent nuclear fuel. That's very important to me that we're going to finally get that spent nuclear fuel off our coast at San Onofre as quickly and as safely as we can. And that's being done on a bipartisan basis. That's one of the last, really good things that's happening on a bipartisan basis right now. And the Bureau of the Interior, all the work that's being done there. So then on military construction and VA, Camp Pendleton needs a lot of help. If you've been on base lately and have seen the barracks, my God, we've got a lot of work to do with those barracks. I just took a tour of several of them, and we're going to do everything we can to improve the barracks for operational readiness for our Marines and our sailors there, and then for our VA facilities all around the district and all around the community. So when I think about what it means for me personally and the impact that we can make, we've already got $1 billion of federal funds into this district over the last 6+ years, and I think as long as things are going as they normally do, we're going to do very well, and we're going to have a lot more coming to this district in the years to come. And these are investments in our community. These are jobs for our community. I get very frustrated when I just hear about every federal dollar spent like it's a bad thing. No, there's a difference between a cost and an investment. When you invest in infrastructure, when you invest in clean drinking water, when you invest in children, for goodness sake, these are investments in the future, and we've got to keep making those investments. Thank you, Donna.
Hi, my name is Steve Tubenk, and I live in Rancho Mission Viejo. I want to first of all start off by thanking Jessica Ramirez. She actually helped me with an IRS problem where I was looking to get paid for over a year and was being ignored by them. So I want to thank you for your work with that.
Thank you, Jessica. Good job.
So, and I also want to thank you for your consistent town halls. I really appreciate that you are out there doing that. So you often mention, and I applaud you for your willingness to work on a bipartisan basis to find common ground with your Republican colleagues. With the tax bill upcoming, or the bill, whatever it is, to extend and perhaps change the provisions of the 2017 law, and that was where my taxes increased on decreased income on a dollar basis versus the prior year. And I think that was mainly due to the SALT caps. So what I'd like to know is what specific areas of common ground will you suggest and fight for to hopefully be fairer to all Americans, including us non-billionaires and not yet millionaires?
I like that. I like that. Well, thank you very much. You know, the sad thing on the state and local tax deduction, and everybody knows about this, right? Everybody knows what we're talking about here, is that I thought we had a pretty good deal with my Republican friends. We have a bipartisan SALT caucus. We've been working on this for some time. And we had a deal on raising the cap to $40,000 for single filers and $80,000 for joint filers. It would have cost money, but I think it would have been a worthwhile investment. It would have been a fair and equitable thing for California and other states that have decided to make investments in their own infrastructure in their own states, like New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Massachusetts. The sad thing, though, is that my Republican colleagues from those states got rolled over. They got rolled over by the Freedom Caucus and the far right, who didn't want to spend any of that money to help states like California. God forbid they would help a state like California. And so that's where it got left. You know, the parts of their bill that I thought were okay. The SALT was one, no tax on tips. I thought if done right, if done to actually help people who, you know, are working in the service sector. What I didn't like is that they were talking about tips, including like commissions on Wall Street. That's no, I'm serious. That's what they were talking about. But no tax on tips would have been great. You know, I think there were some areas where we were trying to work with them. The other thing is money for the California wildfire aid. We know we need around $40 billion between FEMA, the Small Business Administration, Housing and Urban Development, the Army Corps of Engineers, and the EPA, assuming all those agencies will still exist. That's money that we need for the rebuild in Los Angeles. So we were having what I thought were fairly okay discussions, like one-on-one, or you know, a few of us here and there. The SALT caucus was meeting, and then all of it went into a black box with House Republican leadership, and it just came out where they weren't going to do any of it. They didn't want any bipartisan ideas. They didn't want any engagement with a single Democrat on anything. And they said, you know what, we can just pass it on our own. And they did. They did pass the resolution on their own. And then they lied about it. And I can't even believe that this is what they did. They went out and said, well, we're not going to cut Medicaid. What? The hell you're not. The way that these budget resolutions work is it's by committee. You can see how much they want to cut, based on the committee of jurisdiction. And Medicaid falls under the Energy and Commerce jurisdiction, and it's 93% of the budget of the Energy and Commerce jurisdiction. You cannot cut $880 billion from the Energy and Commerce budget without making a massive cut to what's known as FMAP, which is the Federal Medical Assistance Percentage. Did I get that right, Doctor? Mm-hmm. So, you know, right now, the state pays into Medi-Cal, and the feds match it dollar for dollar. The Republican plan would dramatically decrease that. The second thing they want to do is impose what's called a per capita cap on every Medicaid recipient. And that would be devastating also. And it would literally mean in California that people in nursing homes would be on the street. It literally would mean that. It would mean that children with disabilities or low-income folks would have nowhere to go for their health care. That's what it would mean. And for what? Again, for what? Think of the motive. The motive is tax cuts for rich people. That's what we're talking about. And for me, it just is so inconsistent with my values, but I think with most people's values, that once they actually hear how audacious this plan is, I think that it's not going to be very popular. And we just have to keep making sure people know the facts. Thank you for the question.
All right.
Yeah, just to echo that, I mean, people may be out on the streets and they may have to, one of the other options with Medicaid is like the criteria for qualifying for nursing home residency. You might require assistance with 4 out of your activities of daily living instead of only 3. And so again, that's going to result in, for nursing homes that stay open, you've got to be sicker and more functionally dependent or more, cognitively impaired to qualify to get in there. So all those other people that right now are getting the care they need there wouldn't be able to qualify. Yeah.
We have about 15 minutes left, so I think we'll be able to try to get 3 more questions in. The next 3 questions, and unfortunately the last 3 will be from Joe Fitzgerald, India Arnold, and Patricia McMillan. Joe Fitzgerald, India Arnold, Patricia McMillan, please come up to the microphones.
Nothing to do with the things that are going on here. Yes, we care about Social Security, we care about Medicaid, we care about our veterans, but there are some serious, substantial issues for my generation that are not being represented. And I want the ability to talk about that in this forum today. I did not come here, I did not drive all this way, I did not sit in my home last night writing a 5-hour speech to you so that we can talk about this. I want a voice.
Thank you.
I heard you loud and clear. I'm 46, so that makes me like on the younger side of members of Congress, kind of millennial, proximate millennial. But I would love to read, if you have something that I can read, I would love to do that. I'm happy to speak with you after. And okay, I'm ready. We'll do it. Yeah, it's fine with me.
Oh, please, if you have a question, please go up to the microphone, Mr. Gambino.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
But please do not do a 5-minute speech. If you could ask a question so we can keep moving, because we do need to get other folks.
Please.
Your question was number 51 on the list, so we would get you if we got time for 51 questions.
You can go.
I will say something right now, which in it, doesn't always make my staff happy. But if anybody writes me an email, to me personally, at mike@mikelevin.org, I'll probably write you back. Who here has written me to that email address? Have I written you back? Good. So I did not? Okay, well, you still can write me. I try my best. When I was practicing law, I used to have on my voicemail that I will get back to you no matter what time of day or night within 8 hours. If you're a client, I can't guarantee that anymore, 8 hours, but I will do my very best to call back or to write back.
Would you like her to go first before you?
I don't think I was first. I think somebody before me was first. I just didn't want to climb more. So
Okay, sounds good.
Okay. All right. My name is Joan Cumming. I come from Carlsbad. We're all looking forward to the midterms in approximately 18 months, and we're all feeling good that the Democrats are going to win in a landslide. But there is a little concern that what if all of a sudden, for some reason, the elections are called off? Or for some reason, we know the Democrats have won, but the election they say, oh, well, you didn't win. Are there any plans in the works to make sure that the election is fair and takes place when it's supposed to?
Well, look, thank you. I will tell you that there's good news, which is that only Congress sets the date of the elections, automatically set by law unless it's changed by Congress. Changing it is not easy to do, the president cannot unilaterally change the date of an election. The other thing I will tell you is that our system is very decentralized, and so we've got 50 states. We just think of California, for example. Our Secretary of State is doing a great job. We've got 58 counties, and every one of those counties has a registrar of voters. Every city conducts its own election. So I bring that up because it's really decentralized and really difficult in a system like ours to just unilaterally change everything. That being said, I'm concerned just like you. I saw the president go out there the other day in front of the Department of Justice and say that he won the 2020 election. I keep hearing him say that. And we know that he doesn't believe it because he said in the lead up to the 2024 election that he lost. So maybe he just says it to get a rise out of people like me. I don't know. But I am definitely watching very closely and listening very closely, and we're going to fight like hell if we have to, and if we see anything, we will fight. Thank you.
I believe this gentleman is next. Hi, my name is Patricia McMillan. I am from Oceanside. I thank you for holding an in-person town hall today. I'd like to just very briefly address the young woman behind me for speaking up for herself. And I'd like to say that I am here because of my 30-something-year-old daughters, my 1- and 4-year-old grandchild. Statistically, I've about lived my life. It's theirs I'm worried about in the future of America. With respect, sir, we all know that Trump is dismantling America. And I feel to a certain extent the Democrats are complicit because nothing is getting done to defy that. Our founding fathers' greatest fear was an authoritarian dictatorship, which is what we have with Trump, who, along with an unelected insane interloper, Elon Musk, are jointly destroying almost 250 years of democracy and directly harming American citizens, while it appears that the Democrats do very little. The Democratic Party's favorability rating among Americans has hit an all-time low. Again, with respect, sir, I'm saying these things. We can't wait for midterms and hope for change of control because we have a president that ignores everything and does as he pleases. And nobody is saying no. Just say no. We have to do something now, right now. We have to stand up to the bully in the White House. The only way to deal with a bully is to stand up to them. My question is, what specifically please, not lip service, are the Democrats going to do? What do they have planned to stop the takeover before it's too late? Because none of these things matter. Veterans, seniors, Social Security, children, elderly, it doesn't matter unless we stop the takeover of our government.
All I can tell you is that I'm as pissed as you are, because House Democrats said hell no the other day, and we're not going to fall for it anymore. These are different times. A shutdown is not a fun thing. Nobody wants a shutdown, but big parts of our government are already shutting down. And if we were in normal times, maybe what Chuck Schumer did would have made sense. These are not normal times. What I can tell you is I'm proud of House Democrats. I'm proud of Hakeem Jeffries. I can tell you that we're in a very unusual media, no, wait a minute. We're in a very unusual media environment where all day, every day, we can fight like hell, but people aren't necessarily going to hear it. You've got to seek it out. We're not getting the same set of facts every day. If you're just listening to Fox News and right-wing talk radio and X is where you're getting your information, you're not going to hear how we're fighting every day. So what I need everybody to do is amplify the voices of those who are in the fight, and to be one of those voices yourself. Just like you just did, Patricia, everybody here has agency. Everybody here has friends, family, neighbors, coworkers who may not be paying attention at all and have no idea of the seriousness and the severity of the actions being taken by the administration, how they will impact our grandkids and future generations. They probably don't know. A lot of people aren't paying attention. And so I will use, back to what I said at the beginning, I will use every tool that I have. As a member of the House of Representatives, I have some tools with legislation. Although limited in the minority, we can still do things in the minority, like force votes. We need 3 Republicans. You understand that, right? You get 3 Republicans and you can force a vote over the will of the Speaker of the House. Susie knows that because that's how she got her Social Security bill done last year. The Republicans didn't want to do her bill. They were forced to do it because we got 3 of the Republicans to sign on. Just the same, we can do what's called a privileged resolution. We were going to do one on tariffs, by the way, and part of the thing that's bad about that Republican budget or the Republican spending bill is that it kneecaps the ability for the Congress to stand up against the tariffs. That's just one of many bad things that was in that bill. But we still can do other privilege resolutions to force them to take uncomfortable votes, and we will. We've got our committees to the extent we don't have the gavel, so we can't hold the hearings, or we can't call the hearings ourselves, but we certainly can participate and raise hell in those hearings and make sure people are getting the truth and the facts about what's happening. And we also, as I mentioned, we've got the litigation strategy. That's something that we're going to participate in, both by supporting existing litigants with amicus briefs, but also to the extent we have standing, we can file suit ourselves. But none of that, in my view, and I really mean this, none of that is as important as mobilization from the grassroots and communication from everybody. Elon Musk did say one thing that I agree with. He said, you, collectively, you are the media now. That is true. If you have a phone, you are the media. That's the truth. So amplify those voices, amplify those stories, and make sure that your voice is one of those that's being heard. And if you can do half as good as Patricia just did, we're all going to be okay. Well, let me tell you about that. The rallies that happen, you all remember the Women's March, the March for Our Lives, the Science March, the climate marches. All of that happened not because anybody in Washington told them to march. It happened organically. It happened from the bottom up. And that's what needs to happen again. Ultimately, it cannot be anybody in Washington, D.C. telling the people. It's got to be the people telling Washington, D.C.
It's hard to be one person to fill a stadium. You know, we need your help.
You might be able to do it.
I think I could hold
Thank
it.
you, Patricia.
I have quite a speech.
Hi.
To say. Okay. Thank you, Representative Levin, for being here today and for holding
please
this.
give us your name, too.
Oh, I will. For holding this town hall in person. I personally called and asked you for this, and I respect that you stepped up to meet us face to face. That tells me something about you, that you're not just a politician, but you're a human being, too. I am not here alone. I am here for an entire generation. My name is Nicole Gambino. I'm a 38-year-old millennial born and raised in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I now reside in Solana Beach, California. My family has deep roots in both Northern and Southern California and has dedicated itself to this country, not just through military service, but through education, academia, and public service in the University of California systems. I hold a degree in political science and economics, and I have worked almost 2 decades in the heart of Silicon Valley's finance and tech sector. I don't just understand how this system works in theory, I've seen how it works in practice. I am here to tell you that this system is broken. And this isn't just my voice, it is the voice of an entire generation that has been ignored, dismissed, and outright robbed of the future we promised. This is about the rotten system of the core. This is so beyond left versus right, red versus blue, liberal versus conservative, this endless cycle of political theater designed to keep us fighting with each other instead of fighting against the real problem together. Our financial system is rigged, is a rigged casino for the ultra-rich. Our housing system is a corporate-owned Ponzi scheme owned by billionaires in Wall Street. Our healthcare system is an extortion racket. Our education system is a death trap. And our democracy is bought and paid for billionaires, Wall Street, big tech, and the defense industry. My generation is the first generation in 100 years that cannot afford to live. For the first time in modern American history, an entire generation is looking at less prosperity, fewer opportunities, and a lower quality of life than our parents and grandparents. We cannot afford to buy homes. Home ownership was once a cornerstone of the American dream, is now a luxury for the ultra-rich and the children of the wealthy. The average home price in California is $2 million, and that is for a rundown shack in Encinitas that looks like somebody's grandparents' house from 1970. If you don't have generational wealth or a hedge fund buying properties on your chance, you don't stand a chance. My generation cannot afford health care. I personally pay $600 a month for a health insurance plan that would still bankrupt me if I ever needed surgery. In other countries, even so-called third world communist countries, healthcare is free. But in the biggest, richest nation on earth, we let people die over medical bills. There is so much wealth in this country, and we have the audacity to tell our citizens that we don't deserve free, universal, single-payer health insurance like every other civilized country in this world. And health insurance, it's not just my generation, it's everyone here. It is everyone. We cannot afford to take care of our aging parents. We desperately care about Social Security, even if it doesn't impact us yet. We care about Medicaid. We care about our veterans. We care about people outside our own generation. But we also need you all to care about us. My generation is making the same wages as our parents did in the 1980s and 1990s. I am literally making the same amount of money that my dad made in those 2 years. Let that sink in for 1 second. And I work in finance and tech in the heart of Silicon Valley. That is absurd. The minimum wage in the U.S. has not kept up with inflation. I cannot believe we still pay our grocery workers, our essential service workers, our cashiers at Target and Walmart $7 an hour in this economy. That is disgraceful. The cost of food, the cost of rent, the cost of healthcare, the cost of childcare. By the way, I don't know if you know, my generation is not having kids because we can't afford it. Well, yes. What? It is a lecture. Okay. So instead of helping us, we are sending trillions of our tax dollars to corporate bailouts, to businesses, to tech mongols, to the defense industry. So now, Congressman Levin, I ask you, are you with us or are you against us? Because if you're taking AIPAC money, which you are, then you work for the state of Israel. You do not work for the American citizens. If you are taking any form of PAC money, donor money, or individual money from rich people, you represent their interests. You represent the interests of big tech, big pharma, big banks, and big money. Then you are not with the people and you are against us. I vision an America that works for us, not just 100 psychopathic madmen in suits. So that is what I am asking. That is the bare minimum that we want for our society. Health insurance that is affordable, a living wage, education, and a future for our children. And I want to know, are you with us or are you against us, and how are you going to fight?
Thank you, Nicole. So what I will say is that I am a proud member of the End Corruption Caucus. And what that means is that I take no corporate PAC money whatsoever. I'm one of the only members of Congress, and it's okay. It's okay if you don't agree with me, or it's totally fine. I am one of the only members of Congress that has come out and said that members should not be allowed to trade individual stock. And I have co-sponsored legislation that I think only a handful of members have co-sponsored that said we should ban corporate PACs altogether. Just ban them outright. Now, there was a lot in your question, or a lot in your statement to unpack, but I agree with so many of the different things that you said. And the broader, where are you? Are you with the billionaires, or are you with the average person? I think that the thing that we have to understand about Donald Trump is that he sold a bill of goods to the average person, that he was going to do something about a lot of the issues that you brought up. that he was going to do something about housing, that he was going to do something about groceries, that he was going to do something to improve wages. And he had the diagnosis in some ways correct. And a lot of people bought it. A lot of working class folks bought it. But the prescription that he has is all wrong and is non-existent. And I will continue to say that I'm a proud Democrat today. I've been a proud Democrat my whole life. I'll be a proud Democrat until the day I die, because we actually stand up and we fight for the working class of this country. We would not have Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, the Veterans Administration. We wouldn't have any of it if it wasn't for the Democratic Party. And I will not have a circular firing squad where we're attacking fellow Democrats. Period. Full stop. I will also tell you that we have a lot of work to do, because we just lost this election. We lost the House, we lost the Senate, we lost the White House, we eroded support among young people, among African Americans, among Latinos, but I think there's a voice for everybody in the Democratic Party. There's not a voice for everybody at Mar-a-Lago. There's not a voice for everybody that Charlie Kirk is hanging out with, which maybe includes Gavin Newsom now. I don't even know. But let me tell you this. All I know to do, to Patricia's point, is to get up every morning and do the best I can. And I'm not going to make everybody happy. I make plenty of people unhappy that think I'm too far left or too far right. I'm just me. And I'm going to do the best I can and continue to do it every day for as long as I can. That's all I can tell you.
Thank you. We had almost 80 different questions submitted, so we really appreciate that. Our staff will get back in touch with all of you who submitted your questions. I'm sorry, though, we've gone an hour and a half. The Congressman has closing remarks, and we need to get him out of here and you to be able to go home. So I apologize if you didn't get to ask a question, but we will get in touch with you, and thank you for coming. Congressman.
All right, first I want to thank all three of our speakers again. Can you please give them a round of applause? We obviously couldn't get to every question, but if you have a question that you'd like to submit, you can go to levin.house.gov and you can submit that question. Let me close just by saying this. I love this country with every fiber of my being. I really do. And this country is worth fighting for. It's worth all of us fighting for this country. And it is an honor to wake up every morning and to serve this district, whether I wake up here in the beautiful community that I live in or in Washington, D.C. I also think that we've got to continue to try to work together however we can, in any way possible. And I am open-minded and will work in good faith with anybody that wants to work with me. I've always been that way. I will always be that way. But it's very tough to do right now for all the reasons that I said. I still believe fundamentally that we can do big things when we work together. I really believe that. And if you know the Republicans in this community, whether they're elected officials, whether they're community leaders, I hope they would say that I've always tried as best I can to work in good faith with them. And we're going to need them. We're going to need reasonable people across the board who stand against what we're seeing today in Washington, D.C. So finally, just know this. Every morning when I wake up, as I've said, I think about what I can do to serve this community well. And every evening, before I go to sleep, I think about whether I've done what I would want for my 12 and 10-year-old and now 12 and 11-year-old to be proud of. And I hope that that's been the case. I hope that I have done the things that I would want them to do, serve a cause greater than their own self-interest, do the very best with the talents and abilities they've been given. That's all any of us can do. I can tell you it's a great honor to continue to serve, and I'll do it for as long as you'll have me. So with that, I want to thank our guests, and I'll see you all very soon. Thank you for coming out.